Hey, this plant. This is not my plant. This is my daughter's plant. And let me tell you how her plant came to be in my office. So, um, one day she was in my office and she was thinking about her plant because her plant was supposed to have purple flowers coming through. And she was slowly watching it droop. Even though she was watering it, even though she had it in the window, droop, droop, droop. Leaves just like this, right? But she walked in my office and saw the same plant, even though my um, flowers are yellow, because yellow is my favorite. She got purple, of the purple, I think anthurium. Yeah, you know. And she's like, wow, look at yours. And mine is not like that. Mom, would you mind if I brought mine's over into your office? Sure. I put it in the window, kept it water, and slowly but surely, the leaves started perking up. And a few weeks later, because I think I've had it almost 2 months in here, I don't know if you can see it, but right here is the beginning of the first purple flower that's coming back. What if she saw her droopy plant with all the flowers and growth that had died, and she gave up and just thought, I don't have the right to plants. I can't take care of them. There's no hope. What if she ended there? I can't wait to see this fully form. But she walked in and said, it's already more alive because the leaves didn't look like this anymore. They were pointing up towards the sun. And what she realized that there was hope, but she had to do things a little different. And what I'm asking you today, as we deal with overcoming imposter syndrome, is where in your life do you feel fragile? Do you feel like growth is not happening? And it makes your confidence a little shaky and makes you feel fake or an imposter. Hi, I'm Donna Scott. I am a speaker, author, and licensed marriage and family therapist and life coach. And this month, we are talking about, and this is week 3, overcoming imposter syndrome, stepping boldly into God's calling for you. And today we're looking at when confidence feels fragile. How do you strengthen that inner foundation? How did my daughter's plant shift from this droopy, no flowering plant to life and the flower starting to bloom again? Well, what I want to really focus on today is the fact that our confidence gets droopy like her plant when it's nurtured by our fears. And I told you, based on the conference I went to last year, this Professor Creer talked about 5 fears that feed imposter syndrome. And as that sense of not enough, right? Not good enough, not worthy, not spiritual enough. All those subtle messages that come from one of 5 fears. Now, last week, I talked about the 5 types of imposter syndrome. And you can still, if you look in my comments, you can still have access to the imposter quiz to see which one fits. But when we talk about the 5 fears, we're going to look at Number one, the fear of failure. And, ooh, can anybody relate to that one? I know that one thrives in me. I try not to nurture it and feed it, but it just thrives. And if you're struggling with the fear of failure, here's what you may tell yourself. This fear may say, if I try and it doesn't work, everyone will see that I'm not capable. That's what the fear of failure whispers to you. If I try and it doesn't work, then everyone will see that I'm not capable. We talked about the type of imposter syndrome of unqualified. They'll see I'm not capable and I'm not qualified. And wouldn't that hold you back from stepping boldly into what God is calling you to do? We're still looking at Moses, and I wish I had time to go through every verse and the whole 2 chapters of Moses' conversation with God. But I'm going to just pull out snippets, and I absolutely encourage you to read these 2 chapters about Moses. When Moses' fear of failure comes from this statement when he said, "What if they don't believe me?" And that, what if they don't believe me? And I'm doing paraphrase, so work with me here. He's talking about the Israelites. It's like, okay, you're sending me to talk to the Israelites and tell them it's time for their deliverance. What if they don't believe me? They have been enslaved for 400 years. What do I have to bring to the table about that? And if they don't believe me and I fail, then it shows I wasn't qualified to be chosen, God, to be the deliverer to your people. Number 2, the fear of rejection. Ooh, that fear stings. And I'm not going to say like you wouldn't believe, because I'm sure most, if not all, have been on the stinging end of rejection. I think about the jobs I applied for that I didn't get. And that sense of the other one, gosh, when I would like somebody during my single years and it was not reciprocated. That fear of rejection hurts. So the fear of rejection is, it says this: if I show up fully, people won't accept me. And if they don't accept me, they'll reject me. And if they reject me, that hurts. And the feeling that I can be rejected means I'm not confident enough and I feel like an imposter. That confidence is so shaky with that. Here's what Moses said. Again, paraphrasing. The Israelites won't listen to me. His first one, oh, what if they don't believe me? Now, his next argument was, well, they're not going to listen to me. Well, why would they hear me? Especially if they knew his past where he left Egypt because he had murdered someone. And he had murdered one of the not owners, but taskmasters, because he was beating two Israelites. And when he killed the taskmaster to save those Israelites, those 2 Israelites turned on him. Like, look at what you've done. You're going to make it worse for us. So he already had that experience of rejection from Israelites. And now God is telling him to go back and be the leader over, and they believe the numbers of Israelites to be delivered was about 2 million. So can you understand the fear? It was hard enough being rejected by 2. Imagine being rejected by 2 million. That's what fear of rejection says. The third fear is the fear of the unknown. The fear of the unknown whispers, I can't step into what I cannot control. I don't know what's going to happen. And since I can't plan it out, figure it out, measure it out, know the future, I'm not stepping into it. I need to be able to be in control. The fear of the unknown. And guess what? Every single one of us who've been called to a task, to an assignment, to a position, wife, mother, Bible teacher, accountant, whatever that is, author, therapist, speaker, any of those, gosh, we have no clue of what's going to happen. And for some of us, that fear of the unknown feeds imposter syndrome. Number 4, the fear of identity exposure. What do I mean by that? That fear says, if people really knew me, my doubts and my weaknesses, they'd realize I'm not who they think that I am. And I really think that also happens as Christians. I know I'm like, if you knew my weaknesses, if you knew my struggles, if you knew what was behind this Facebook Live, you wouldn't be tuning in to listen. You wouldn't be sharing this message. That's the fear of, if you really knew me, yeah, you wouldn't want to hear me. And Moses said, who am I to go to Pharaoh? Who am I? That's the fear of that identity exposure, right? If Pharaoh knows who I am, a murderer, former resident of the palace, who am I to go? Who am I to speak to you right now? Who are you to pray with someone aloud when they ask for prayer in the moment? That fear of, if they know who I am, they won't. And that's also a form of rejection. And finally, I'm sure we can all relate to this one, the fear of being wrong. This fear says, if I make a mistake, it proves I'm not qualified. If I make a mistake, it proves I'm not qualified. And I'm an imposter. That fear of being wrong. Moses said, I'm slow of speech. I'm the wrong choice, Lord. You need to send someone else. I think I'm going to talk about that more next week, because we have to see what God did with all of Moses' fears. And the same God that helped Moses through his fears longs to help you as well. Because when you read the story, God did not dismiss Moses' fears, and he didn't take them away. He didn't take away the fear of rejection. He didn't take away the fear of being wrong. He didn't take any of them away. But he did promise something else. And we read about that promise in those 2 chapters, but I really wanted to bring it out in Isaiah 41:10. And I'm reading from the Amplified. Do not fear anything, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, because I am your God. Do not. I'm trying to see if I have any comments. Okay. I will strengthen you. Be assured, I will help you. I will certainly take hold of you with my righteous right hand, a hand of justice, of power, of victory, of salvation. God did not remove the fears, but what he did was reveal his faithfulness to Moses and his presence with Moses. I will be with you. And my sisters and my brothers, you have that same assurance. When we talk about feeding confidence, we're talking about resting and residing and trusting in God's presence for whatever he's called us to do. What brought life to my daughter's plant was exposure, not the fear of a poor identity, but exposure to the sun. The sun, presence in God's light is what caused this plant to flourish, to be confident, and to bloom again. The foundation you need to battle imposter syndrome is time in God's presence and holding on to the promise that whatever he's called you to do, he will equip you with his presence, that you face nothing, and no one ever alone. He didn't call Moses because Moses had it all together. You got to understand, all the education Moses got when he was living in Pharaoh's, in the palace, all the education the Israelites and all that wasn't getting, he had all that and was still scared. But God didn't call him because of that. God called him because he created him, and he knew, God knew what he could do through Moses when Moses became a willing vessel. So when Satan whispers those fears that try to stop you from being all that God called you to be, remember Isaiah 41:10 and his promise to be with you, his promise to strengthen you, his promise to hold you up. And you can only do that by being in his light, being in the light of his presence, feeding and nourishing in the word, sharing your fears with him. That's the beauty of what Moses did. He shared his fears with God. And God encourages you to do the same. So I challenge you this week to think about, where do you see the smallest piece of growth in your life? The smallest piece. The smallest piece. And what can you do to nurture it, to sit at God's feet and embrace his light and his love and his presence for you? When your confidence gets shaky, your foundation is the truth that God is with you. Amen? All right, I can't wait to share next week the conclusion to overcoming imposter syndrome. Again, you can get the imposter quiz, and I also have another resource in there that I hope you take advantage of. Okay, I look forward to seeing you next time. Spend some time in the light of God's presence. Talk to you later. Bye.